Welcome to another MC4 webinar. This one is on career development and successful job searching. It's very similar to the presentations that I've done at some other military bases, including Fort McPherson down in Atlanta, Georgia. So a little bit about me. I live in Windham, New Hampshire. I work for companies developing global supply capability. I also provide consulting and give speeches to companies on leadership and some other topics. And I am the founder of MC4. So, but this is what's really important. I've been exactly where you are today. I was an enlisted guy with a wife, 2 kids, a high school diploma. I didn't have a lot of money. I had taken some college courses at night, but not very much. And a guy who was a Vietnam vet gave me a job at Honeywell simply because I was a Vietnam vet. Once he gave me that job, the rest was up to me. I ended up going to college 2 nights a week for 14 years in the GI Bill. When I finally graduated, but I took every advantage of every opportunity to learn new information and develop the skills that have given me a reasonably successful career. So there's 2 things that you need to do in your job search. The first one is you need to believe in yourself, in your abilities, and you need to be committed to doing the work. The other is no excuses. You're the ones who are in control of your future. Everything that we do in MC4 is to help you. But in the end, you're the one who's in control. So this is about helping you prepare to find a job. And there's different elements to that work. And most of what you'll see tonight is similar to some of the topics that have been discussed on the discussion boards in the group. My goal is to help you be better prepared than anybody else. Looking for a job is a job, and you may in some cases be competing with people that you know, but I'd like you to think about those people that you know who might be applying for the same position as not competitors, but part of your network, where you have the opportunity to share information and help each other in the end be successful. So it's important that within MC4, you use that to create your network of other individuals, coaches, and other people who might be in the group, because the larger your network, the easier it may be for you to network into target companies. So don't hesitate to reach out and ask people like me or other coaches or other people in the group to become part of your network. You never know where that might lead or what doors that might open. So this presentation is interactive. It means that from time to time, I'm going to ask some questions and maybe challenge your answers a little bit. This is to help you begin to think about your job search and career development in a different way. After it's over, you can contact me by email. Be more than happy to talk to you on the phone. I think I've talked to most of you at least once anyway. So what I'm going to do right now is pause, because I want to make sure that if you've got questions, I can give you a chance to ask them at this point. So your microphones are unmuted, so if somebody has a question, this is a good time to ask. No questions. Okay, remember that you can raise your hand by clicking on the icon that's on the control screen that you have. And at that point, I'll unmute your microphone and you can ask your question. So there's a principle that you need to understand, and it goes to the unemployment rate and the quality of your resume. As the unemployment rate rises, more people are going to be applying for the same job. And as a result of that, the quality of your resume also has to rise. When unemployment rate is at 2%, how good your resume is doesn't matter as much as when it's at 9.2%. So as you've seen in the discussion boards and as you'll find out here, the resume is one of the most important parts of your job search. So what I'm trying to do is give you a competitive advantage in your job search over anybody else that is not part of this webinar, not part of MC4. And so all of this is intended to try and give you a competitive advantage. I'm kind of like your recruiter, and this is important. There's no guarantees and there's no promises. Like your military career, your career development and your job search is going to be somewhat of an adventure. It's going to have moments where you feel really good, and it's going to have moments where you feel really bad. All of that is normal. What you want to try and do is manage those by managing the expectations that you have and making sure that those expectations are in line with something that's reasonable. Again, I just want to tell you, if you have a question, you can click on the hand icon and I'll be able to see it, and I'll pause and I'll unmute your microphone. So there's some critical words and definitions that are important. And the first one starts with knowledge. Every job has a knowledge content. And knowledge is the information that you have that's relevant to the performance of some activity. And it's what people have to know in order to be able to perform some activity. So knowledge is the foundation of being able to then develop skill. You cannot develop a skill without first having the knowledge. So companies in their job descriptions are always going to talk about what they would like you to know, and then they're going to talk about the skills that they expect you to have based on that knowledge. The third element is competency. Competency is basically how well you're able to use those skills to perform some work activity. And the last one is contribution. It's the result that's created by your using your knowledge, your skills, and your competencies to achieve some goal. Now, why am I telling you this? Because your resume needs to be able to describe each of these directly. As you develop your resume, you want to be able to describe what it is you know in terms of knowledge. What skills do you have as a result of that knowledge? How well are you able to utilize those skills? And then in a quantitative way, how were you able to use those skills, competency, and knowledge to make a contribution to whatever organization you belong to? This sounds difficult, but it really is not. you already have some idea of what you know and what your skills are and where your competencies are. All this is doing is putting it into terms that are civilianized over what you might have learned in the past. So because of the way this presentation is set up, it's usually done in front of a live audience. So I'm going to do this by also answering the questions. So how many of you believe that a company will hire me for the same reasons they'll hire you? And with few exceptions, there's only one correct answer. And the answer is really one of the keys to your being able to find the job, because it will help drive the strategy and your approach. So the reality is that a company will generally hire you because you've convinced them through your resume and through the interview that you have the knowledge, skills, and competency to make a contribution to the success of the company or the organization. In most instances, that is the only reason that someone is going to hire you, because you have convinced them that you have the knowledge, the skills, and the competencies to make a contribution to their success, the success of the company, or the success of the organization. Your cover letter, your resume, and your interview performance needs to clearly demonstrate those four requirements as part of the discussions that you might have, the interview questions that you answer, and the types of questions that you might ask in the course of the interview. So I just want to pause for a second and again unmute your microphones, because I want to make sure if you have questions you're able to ask. So Dale, do you have any questions so far?
Not right now, Bob.
Don Harvey, any questions?
No, not this time.
Okay, Mark, are you okay? Phil?
All good, Bob.
All right, Tommy? Tommy, question pane. Hold on. No questions, Tommy? Okay, thanks. So I'm going to unmute everybody's microphone again. Remember, you can always raise your hand, and I'll stop and answer any question that you might have. So this is an important concept, because this is, in most cases, what they're going to use to judge either whether they will bring you in the interview based on your resume, or whether or not you're someone who they believe can be successful in their organization and can help them be successful. So if they would both hire us for the same reasons, what are the expectation differences that they would have between me and you? And the answer to that really is the amount of time that they would give me to perform is going to be much shorter than the amount of time they would give you. And that has to do with the amount of experience that I have and my overall background. So while they would hire me for the same reason they would hire you, the piece of this that is different is that they won't give me very much time to be able to demonstrate how I can make a contribution to what they're trying to do. So this question is around your strengths. And in a live audience, when I ask this question, I usually ask for a volunteer. And what's interesting about this question is that when you ask someone about their strengths, they're usually able to give you an answer immediately. The next question, though, is give me one of your weaknesses. People have a much more difficult time understanding or being willing to talk about their weaknesses. And the problem with that is that you will be asked those questions in an interview. If you tell the interviewer you don't have any weaknesses, you're probably not going to get the job because they're not going to believe you. If you give them something that they don't really accept as a weakness or is trivial, you're probably not going to get the job. Here's what they're trying to find out. We don't improve by focusing on our strengths. We improve by focusing on our weaknesses and then working to improve those so they become a strength. Most corporations have a view of continuous improvement, but they also want to know that you understand what your weaknesses are, because the follow-up question will be, what are you doing to improve that weakness? And so it's very important that you be able to describe one of your weaknesses that would be relevant to the job, but also be able to describe what you're doing to improve it. So knowing your strengths is interesting, but understanding and accepting our weaknesses is powerful, because focusing on our weaknesses is ultimately how we're going to improve. So here's another question that works well in a live audience. Understanding the kind of company that you want to work for and what kind of a job do you want there. In the United States, there's probably 30 million companies in 10,000 different industries. What you need to do is create a filter that allows you to decide that you want to work in manufacturing, you want to work in hospitality, you'd like to work in finance, because you're not going to be able to take a shotgun approach to just look at every company that's out there. The people who are going to be most successful in their job search are people who are targeting a particular industry, a particular type of company, even a particular size of company. If you have been in a leadership role for the last 10 or 15 years and you want to get a senior leadership role in a company, probably would not be able to at a General Electric. But at a smaller company with maybe a couple of hundred employees, $20, $30 million, $50 million worth of revenue, you may be able to get a significant leadership role. So you want to keep that in mind, but it's important to be able to begin to describe the type of job that you would like to have, or that your next career, and the type of company that you would like to work for. This third one is really interesting because you want to understand why they would want to hire you. And this takes you back to your knowledge, your skill, your competencies, and your contributions. So you want to use this as you evaluate industries and companies and different types of jobs. You want to be able to talk to yourself about why would they want to hire you. And you need to be able to describe that in both quantitative and qualitative terms. So, again, if you have a question, click on the hand and I'll see it and I can stop and we can talk about your question. Now, people get confused over the cover letter and the resume's purpose. No one has ever gotten a job because of a job offer solely because of the cover letter or the resume. If you use a cover letter, it has a single purpose, which is to get them to want to read your resume. The cover letter does not go into the detail that a resume does. It's like a teaser. It gives them a very quick summary of who you are, what your background is, and it highlights the knowledge, skills, and competencies that you have that would be appropriate for a particular job that you're applying. You also need to look at job descriptions very closely. Every job description usually has some requirement that begins with two words, must have. You want to identify those must-haves that are in the job description, understand whether you have that or not, so that if it comes up, and more than likely it will in an interview, you can talk about it and answer any questions that there might be. Now, if you have a job description and it says that you must have experience repairing desktop computers and all your experience is in repairing laptop computers, while it's not direct experience, it's experience that's transferable to a desktop computer if you've been repairing laptops, or to desktops if you've been repairing laptops. So there are some skills that you're going to have that are directly transferable to different parts of a job description, including the ones that say must have. But you want to know and identify the must-haves in a job description because those will certainly be elements that anyone interviewing you will want to talk about. The resume has a single purpose. It's to get you the interview. You want to make sure that it has key words in it from your past responsibilities as well as key words that are in the job description. And again, the reason for this is not to just civilianize your resume, but it's to make sure that someone reading it continues to be interested and they read the entire resume. I can tell you from somebody who's hired hundreds of people and who has been handed a stack of resumes from human resources to go through and pick the ones that I want to interview. I might only look at a resume for 20 seconds and decide yes or no. So when you think about the resume, readability and ease of reading the resume are absolutely important because I can assure you, someone who is screening resumes, that's all they're doing is screening them. They're not reading them. And they're looking for the keywords or other things that attract their attention. If you look at many of the resumes that people in MC4 have started to use, underneath the summary, they're putting lists, very brief lists of a half a dozen or so very specific skills that they have that are related to the jobs that they're applying for. And I have some examples of some of those resumes if at some point you'd like to see those. And somewhere there's a question, but I can't find it. All right, I can't, it says there's a question, but I'll be damned if I can find it. So remember, it's easier if you just raise your hand and then we figure out a way to get you to be able to ask the question. So the resume has a single purpose. It's to get you the interview. You want to think, when you write the resume, being able to describe your contribution in terms of what it was you did, how you did it, and the result. Now, my preference is to put the result first. So a sentence that says, reduced incoming inspection defects by 50% is much different in terms of its power if you said it this way: 50% reduction in incoming inspection defects. Now, it communicates the same piece of information, except if somebody is screening the resume, more than likely they're reading from the top to bottom, left to right, and they're going down the left side of the page. When they see something like 50%, they're going to stop and they're going to read whatever that's attached to. If the 50% is at the end of the sentence, they may never see it. So you want to put as much qualitative or quantitative information in the beginning of the sentence in the resume rather than in the back end of it, where it's buried and it may be harder for somebody to find. The goal is to get them to read the resume and decide that they want to talk to you. So this is a pretty good trick, and I can tell you that it's very effective. So as you work through your resumes, think about how you can rewrite the sentence to get the quantitative information to the front of the sentence and not towards the back. Somebody's got a question. Hey, Mark, Mark, I know you don't have a microphone, and for some reason, I can't find the... So I'm sending you Mark, I'm sending you a message. Just respond to the message that I just sent. Mark? Do-do-do. Okay, Mark, I can't, I don't know how we can get your question. I'll have to see if there's another option. My apologies. Okay, so think about rewriting those sentences so that you're able to get them to where you want them. Now, this is a chronological resume, but what I want to show you is the way that it's written is done in a very interesting way. Up at the top, you can see a summary, which is very brief, and it talks about 20 years, consistent growth, large and complex organizations, this core competency, which goes to the skills that somebody has. Now, I will tell you that I don't necessarily like the way the core competencies are done, but it's there and it's easy to see. Under professional history, this person shows each of the major roles that they've had, but using bullets instead of words highlights 4 or 5 of the major responsibilities and accomplishments that took place in that role. Now, I wish that there was more quantitative information in here, but this was a pretty good start to an initial resume. If you take, this is what the resume started when this person first wrote it. This is what the resume looked like after it had been reorganized and rewritten, and this person got a job about 2.5 months ago. So they were getting no response to this resume, but this one, he got enough responses that he eventually got an offer, and he's been working for a while. The big difference is it's easier to read. There's a lot of white space, but more importantly, the words operations, planning, organizational development and training, personnel development, this resume has been civilianized. Now, if you looked at the second page, it does show the duty stations that this person has had, but it's all done on one line for each duty station. It doesn't go into a lot of detail. So this resume has been reasonably well civilianized. But again, we were able to put some more metrics in here, and you can see maintain 99% graduation rate, and I think all of that helped in the successful application and use of the resume. So now, this concept of qualitative versus quantitative. When we say it's hot outside, that's a qualitative statement. Its actual meaning is dependent upon the person hearing it. If you were with the Eskimos in Alaska in the winter and it was 30 degrees outside, they might tell you that it was hot, and you would think that they were crazy. Here's another example of how this can change. So this is qualitative statements versus quantitative. You could say reduce the time to replace X. So what they know is there was some reduction in time to remove and replace whatever X is, but there's no way to judge whether that's a minor reduction or something significant, because reduce the time is a qualitative statement. If you said you changed the procedure for removal and replacement of X and reduce the time, it's a little better because you're describing some change that you put in place that caused the reduction of time. So this goes to the what you did and what the result was. If you said that you changed the procedure for removal and replacement of X and reduced the time by 10%, this is even better, because now you're describing what it was you did, what you did it on, and what the result was. If you now said this, 36-minute, and then in parentheses, 10% reduction in the time to remove and replace X by changing the procedure, this is the ideal way to say it, because you're telling them what the result was, how that result was achieved, and what was done. And again, you can figure out whether or not identifying the 36 minutes on the last bullet is easier than finding that 10% in the third one. Now, the reason the 36 minutes is there is because nobody really knows what 10% is. So by putting the 36 minutes in there, now you're helping them understand that 10% is a big deal. It puts it in context. So bullet number 4 is written in the following way: the result, the what, and the how. You want to use the experience as much as possible from both your civilian and your military service. What did you work on? What did you accomplish? What did you contribute? What skills or knowledge have you gained? Special recognition. Think about leadership. What leadership skills or experience did you demonstrate? Awards, recognition, scholarships. You have this constant question around chronological versus functional types of resumes. I can tell you that most of the people in MC4 who have gotten jobs, and many people have gotten jobs that came into MC4, I think it's probably 80% of them are using functional resumes versus chronological. So let's pause for a second. And I just want to, are there any questions so far?
Bob, can you hear me?
Barely. Try it again.
Can you hear me, Bob?
Yes, I can, Mark.
I found a microphone. Apparently, I'm new to the organization, so thank you very much for your time, first off. The switching from chronological to functional is going to be my biggest problem. How do you know what, I guess lack of a better term, what functional terms to put down there? What should I highlight and how should I lump them in there? Is it obviously going to be job specific by each reading the job description? Is it that easy?
Yeah, there's different ways to do it. If you're looking for jobs in like manufacturing and those kinds of things, then, or in other types of companies, then the standard types of competencies and skills that might apply. For example, operations management if you were going to be in manufacturing. If you're going to be dealing with budgets as part of that, budgeting. Organizational development, which is about developing the skills and capabilities of the people in the organization that you lead, is a good one. There are some sample resumes that I can send. That may be helpful, but also just asking people as part of the discussion group and those kinds of things. Are are you retiring, Mark?
No, sir, I'm separating.
Okay. How long have you been in?
15 years.
Okay, so you know you've got some levels and types of experience behind you. Now there is a reason why you may not want to have a functional resume, and where a chronological one is what you need. If you're going to work for applying for defense contractors, in some cases, they want to see a chronological one. If you're applying for a GS role, that's a whole different practice or process that they use. But again, a functional resume allows you to highlight very specific skills and competencies that you have that are directly transferable. And I have yet to find anyone that I've worked with that we could not come up with a list of a half a dozen functional skills that were of value to an organization.
That's good to know. I will spend some time in the next few days here looking over the group and canvassing the group or whatnot, and reading what I can.
If you want, just send me a message via LinkedIn and give me your email address, and I'll send you some examples.
Oh, thank you.
And, you know, I'll tell you, we say that MC4 only has one rule, and that it's when you get a job, you need to come back and coach. There's a second rule that we don't talk about, which is steal shamelessly. So if you see somebody's resume, some of these samples, and you like something in it, it's okay to copy it. I don't know. I mean, my resume's probably been copied hundreds of times, and I've copied stuff from other people's resumes. So stealing shamelessly, the ideas that you get off of other people's resume is okay. So I'm gonna mute everybody up again, and then we'll go back to this. And again, if you have a question, raise your hand. And I'm glad you found the microphone, Mark, because I couldn't figure out how to read your question. Okay, you've got to get past this black hole of either computerized screening or somebody in HR who's hand screening the resumes. Some companies and major employers use these automated tools to screen the resumes for keywords and other criteria specific to a role. That skills block that you saw on that example that I showed you is a very good way of making sure that some of the key words around skills that are in job descriptions, that you can get them highlighted on your resume if you have those skills. And what's nice about those skills blocks is that they're easily changeable and editable. But your goal really has to be to get your resume into the hands of the hiring manager or somebody in HR or somebody else with some influence. Every coach is going to tell you this. Make sure your resume's got key words from the job description. Now, if you don't have those key words in your experience, background, or skill set, don't put them in there, because you'll end up creating a bigger problem for yourself. The reason that we keep emphasizing the importance of networking is that through LinkedIn, in building your network, you will be able to identify, believe it or not, people who are connected to someone that you're connected to who works in a company that's of interest to you. So you can use your LinkedIn network to help network into different companies. There's several MC4 webinars that we have run that, like this one, have been recorded, And that video is available to you, and the link to it is somewhere on the site, but I'll repost it after we get this one posted. So there was a very specific webinar that we ran on how to effectively use LinkedIn in your job search, and we're probably going to repeat that one maybe as early as next week or the week after. So LinkedIn is very, very important in helping you build your network, because about 60% of the jobs, based on what I've read, are actually gotten because of somebody's network. I'm going to talk about Jigsaw only for a minute. Jigsaw is a very large database with downloadable contact information. It's a subscription service, and I happen to belong to it. So if you're looking for a particular contact in a company, in human resources or something like that, I can help you identify someone in the company that you can send emails directly to and talk to them, okay? But you can also go to LinkedIn and you can see what you might be able to do in using it yourself. But it's an interesting database. Now, when you're preparing for these interviews, there's some things that you need to do in order to adequately get prepared to be able to perform. And part of being in an interview is it's somewhat like a performance. You first want to really focus on how, because of your past experience, your knowledge, your skills, and your competencies, you want to be able to identify how you can make contributions to the organization and to the goals of the company that you're interviewing with. If you can't describe to yourself where you will bring value to them in a way that they can see that it's value, you may have a very hard time in the interview. So there's some amount of effort that has to go into preparing for an interview, and this is just one of the steps. There are questions that they may ask you that I call killer questions, and we're going to go over what some of those questions are in a minute. Now, all of you have foreign language skills, and all of you speak a language that's not always understood by people in the civilian world. And if you don't believe me, just look at this. The Army has 205 official acronyms. In addition to that, they have 103 unofficial acronyms that they call slang. Most people in the civilian world do not understand Army, Air Force, Marine, Navy acronym language. And when they start seeing it, their eyes glaze over, and it may cause them to stop reading the resume. So you want to make sure that you're not overloading your resume with acronyms that most civilians will not understand. So you want to be careful with using them on your resume. There's some common sense reminders about interviewing. You want to make sure you're on time. No one ever lost a job opportunity because they were a few minutes early. It's better to arrive early, sit in your car, go to the coffee shop next door, and then 5 or 10 minutes before the interview, walk over and go through whatever process they have to get connected or meet up with who's ever interviewing you. You want to dress neatly and appropriately. Companies may say to you, don't, wear casual, no need for a suit and tie. If they tell you it's casual, don't have to wear a suit and tie, don't wear a suit and tie. But it doesn't mean you go in jeans. Most companies with business casual are going to wear slacks, shoes, and an open collar shirt. If you want, you can put a sports coat on. If they don't specifically tell you that you don't need to wear a coat and tie, wear a coat and tie. You want to make sure that you're prepared, and we're going to cover some things that you need to do. Prepared not only that you understand the job description and you understand the requirements of it, but you understand how you could fill that role and how you could perform in that role successfully. You want to be a good listener. So you want to listen to the questions, listen to what the interviewer is saying, because they may give you information that you can use later on in the interview. You want to observe their response to your questions. And you can tell by looking at them whether or not they're engaged, whether or not your answer seems to have gotten a positive response, or if they look skeptical. And based on how you interpret their body language, you can either expand on your answer or shorten your answer if it doesn't seem like they're very interested. It's important to be flexible. It is unfortunately too common that you may have an interview with the hiring manager at 9 o'clock, and at 8:50 his boss walks in the office with a fire drill that he needs to take time to prepare. Maybe there's some problem that came up and he may be late. Hopefully they're going to tell you that it's going to start a few minutes late, but be flexible, and when they apologize for being late, just tell them, it's okay, you understand these things happen. It's also important to ask questions. Questions demonstrate a couple things. One, if they're thoughtful questions, it's going to show that you ask thoughtful questions. If they're thoughtful questions that are related specifically to the company, that's also good. So I'm going to go over what some questions might be that you would like to, that you might want to ask. Interviewing is like a first date. The goal is to get a second date. Most interviews today are conducted over the phone in a phone screen. You will know in most cases before they call that they'll tell you that we'd like to talk to you on Monday at 2 o'clock about this position. Is that a good time? Sure. You want to research the company. Who's the leadership? What's their products? Where do they have locations? Using their website if it's a big corporation. And you want to begin to understand more about the company so that when they talk about their products, when they talk about different things that are going on, you can understand them because you've already done some research. Again, when you're preparing for the interview, focus on how, because of your experience, you could make a contribution to the company. Think about how to quantify your contributions and how that experience could relate to specific things that are in the job description. And make sure that you understand the position clearly and that you understand at least what the company is making and where they're making it and their market and those kinds of things. Now, here's some killer questions. What do you know about our company? If you say, well, I've read a little bit about it, you're probably done with the interview. You want to be able to describe the company in terms of where they are in their industry, maybe you're familiar with their products, but you want to be able to show some knowledge about the company. Maybe their revenue, if they're a public company, but you want to be able to say something beyond, Well, I didn't know very much until I saw the advertisement. I'm hoping to learn more about the company while I'm here. That guarantees that you're not going to get asked to come back. They may ask, what do you know about our values and culture? If it's a public company, you can go to their website and read about it, usually under the careers page or why would you want to work here. If it's a private company and they have a website, you know, it might be the same. They're going to ask, why do you want to work here? And if you can't answer that question, then it probably means that you're not going to get called back for another interview. And then this one, what is it you expect from us? What I'm going to do in a minute is give you some answers to these questions that in most cases will work okay. So you need to research the company. Understand financials if they're public. Are they growing? What's their revenue? Do they identify any customers, awards, special recognition? What do they make? What service do they provide? Are they in the consumer, industrial, retail? What industry are they in? Are they recognized for something that's unique or something special? And from their website, you may be able to get something about the culture around training and development programs that employees are available to employees, what they may be doing in the community, charities that they might support. And a value statement that talks about the values that the company has. Now, there's some more research that you can do by going to their website. Again, public companies, you can get the annual reports. You can do a Google search for press reports. Then think about, what do you like about what you've discovered about the company? What don't you like? If you can find information on employees and the programs that are offered to employees, that's also helpful. If you do what I've described, you can now answer these questions. What do you know about our company? You could say, I know that your revenues have grown 10% in the last quarter because you've recently introduced several new products, one of which is X. Why do you want to work here? I've targeted companies that are growing because I believe it will help in my career, blah, blah, blah. But also, I'm very happy to know the companies and the employees are involved in the community. I think it says a lot about the philosophy of the leadership. And what do you expect from us? And here, what you're trying to do is say, look, I want to come. I think I can make a contribution. I know that I can. You're looking to continuously learn and develop so that your career can progress and you can grow in the areas of more responsibility. They're looking for what amounts to be intelligent answers to relatively simple questions if you've done the research. Now, you at some point will have the chance to ask questions, and you should ask questions. I would encourage you to ask questions that play to one of your strengths. Open-ended questions are questions that require more than a yes or no. And it allows you to begin a dialogue with the person interviewing you that might give you a chance to highlight some of your strengths. Questions that you don't ever ask. How much does the job pay? How many hours a week will I work? Will I need to work weekends? Do I get my own laptop or cell phone? What kind of an office will I have? Those questions show that your priorities are in the wrong place. And again, asking those probably is going to get you taken off the list of let's invite them back. Questions that are good to ask. I read in the annual report that the revenues dropped because of global issues. Seems to be turning around now with some growth in the last quarter. Do you think that will accelerate? Where do you see some of the challenges the company or organization will face? What are some of the goals of the organization or the department in which I might work? What types of goals or projects would I have a chance to work on? And do you have any concerns about me or my answers that I can clarify? You always want to end the interview by making sure that if they've got some concerns that you can try and correct them right there, or you can understand them and maybe restate an answer that caused the concern. Okay, use social websites, LinkedIn, Facebook, MSN. I've never used Facebook for job searching, but I guess some people do. And then there's job websites like Career Builder, Monster, Indeed, and the ladders. So LinkedIn, I think, is becoming much more prominent in people's job search. The websites, you put your resume up there and you're guaranteed to get emails from people in foreign countries telling you that you've won the national lottery of the UK for the 7th time. Social media, Facebook, friends, family, MSN, friends and family, LinkedIn business, all of these you need to do with caution. I can tell you that 80% of all the recruiters will look at social networking sites, websites like Facebook, to see if they can find you before scheduling interviews. They will definitely look at your LinkedIn profile. And the things that you want to remember is, if you're on Facebook, that your friends might find your latest personal crisis, night out, or conquest interesting, or some of the pictures you might post. Potential employers might not. So if you're on Facebook, make sure your settings are that people who are not part of, you haven't friended, anybody that you have not friended on Facebook cannot see anything other than the fact that you have a Facebook account, and you prevent that. So just check your privacy settings on some of these. So I'm going to stop for a minute, give you a chance to ask any questions. All right, so is everybody still okay?
I'm good.
Good to go.
I'm good.
Okay. I'm going to mute everybody again. Okay, so LinkedIn is the premier site for networking. It's the Facebook of business professionals. I'm not going to go a lot into it, but when we run the next webinar, it will be specific to LinkedIn, how you can use it to search for people, companies, companies that have a specific profile, and how you can use it to search for jobs. In the meantime, you can find that video, just find the link on the discussion page, and you'll be able to actually watch the webinar that we recorded. Control your expectations. Best way to control your disappointment. Rejection is not personal. It's a business decision. And I can tell you that as again, somebody that's hired a lot of people, nobody likes to tell someone they're not going to get the job. But it's just part of being a hiring manager. And it's not something you enjoy, but it's something that's necessary. You want to be clear in your career goals. Do you want a career or do you want a job? A career is what you get up to every morning and you're excited and you look forward to going to work. A job is what you do for a paycheck. And you want to be clear on exactly what it is you're looking for. A 30-second elevator speech is something that you could tell someone inside of 30 seconds that would make them want to continue talking to you about working for them. So it's a very quick summary that describes your strengths, your things that you've done, and it doesn't last longer than 30 seconds. Remember why a company hires somebody. When you think about your resume, when you think about preparing for the interview, be clear on how you can contribute to the success of the company that you're interviewing with in that particular role. After the interview, you want to review, and you need to be very honest with yourself. What went well? What were some of the weaknesses? What would you improve, and what did you learn? The biggest piece of advice that you'll ever get from anybody that's done this is that you want to use your last experience to make your next experience even better. So use each interview to learn how to get better and better prepared for the next one. Be flexible. Adjust your strategy, your approach, your resume, your cover letter as you get information and feedback. Support the other people that are within your network, which is basically everyone that's in MC4. Support each other, give them ideas, give them feedback, give them tips, and remember Thomas Edison. Edison, when he was inventing the telephone, had an assistant. They were working out of Cambridge, Mass, in a building off of Mass Ave, and they did this experiment, and it didn't work. And Edison's assistant said to him, "You must be so discouraged." And Edison said, "Why?" And the kid said, "Because we've done this 400 times and we haven't learned anything." And Edison told him he was wrong, that they had learned 400 ways that it didn't work. So everything that you do in a job search is an opportunity to learn how to improve what it is you're doing. So that's the end of the presentation. And I'm going to unmute everybody. Hopefully you're all still there, although I know that you're there because I can see you. And so Chris, Dale, Don, Mike, Mark, and Phil, do you have any questions, comments?
Hey, Bob.
I'm just going to say thank you. Oh, go ahead, Phil.
Anybody else got any questions? I didn't hear everything you said, Dale, but you said thank you.
Hey, Bob, this is Dale. I just wanted to make a comment. I think I understand now about your resume, what you were trying to tell me over the phone about the results and the quantitative results that we were discussing. So thanks for covering that. And thank you again for looking at my resume. Just for the group, Bob's been great looking at my resume and giving me feedback, so thank you.
You know, I got to tell you, I probably have looked at, it's got to be 400 resumes, and some of them multiple times. But, yeah, I'm happy to look at anybody's resume. Phil, are you okay?
Yeah, I got one thing, Bob, if you don't mind giving us a quick spiel on a thank you letter for after the interview. Any things to avoid or, things to definitely put into that note?
Well, I think you want to just keep it short. You want to thank the individual for, taking the time to spend with you. Maybe recognize that that, they're pretty busy, so you really appreciate it. Restate your interest in both the position as well as the company, and that you're looking forward to the next steps and talking to them some more. That's it. I mean, it's pretty short. There's this thing that I don't completely understand, which is there's been some discussions around, is it okay to do that via email? And I think the opinions are mixed. If you send it through the mail, then it shows you took a little more attention to it, stuff like that. So however you get it there. But I do know some people that send them via email today. But you want to keep it short, that's all.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Bob.
Anything else? Okay, so look, if there's something that I can do, reach out to me, reach out to the coaches, read the discussions, even if you can if you recently joined us, if you go back a month or so in the discussions, you'll see some really, really good ones. So thanks for taking the time. This has been recorded, and over the next day or so it will be posted, and I'll post a link to it, and you will be able to watch it again, or that link will also take you to the place that the other videos are stored. So thanks.
Hey, Bob.
What?
Hey, Bob, it's Don.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had mentioned that your seminar on the LinkedIn was on your LinkedIn profile somewhere?
No, it's in the discussions group on the, well, I'll tell you where you can get them. If you go to my personal website, which is www.bobdixon, one word, .snappages.
Is it still on or what? The kids didn't turn off. I didn't know.
www.bobdixon.snappages.com.
Bob Dixon what?
Snap pages, one word, .com. And on that first page you come to, there'll be a link, and you'll be able to see them and download them.
Okay, because on your thank you page, you're showing a different web page.
No, it's my own website.
Okay.
Shortly, we'll be able to put them on the MC4 website. We've got some technical issues that we're trying to deal with. But at some point, we'll actually have them on the MC4 website. Okay. Hey, thanks an awful lot. I appreciate